Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's good to see you. This is a reading for Libra moons, or if you have significant Libra placements in your chart and are needing a feminine energy to work with or balance within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Libra, your reading is really interesting today. It's feeling a little bit abstract, so I'm not exactly sure how this is going to resonate with like a physical real life example in your life, or how it will play out with for you, but I'm just gonna go with it. This is now my second time trying to record this because I feel like this is part of your energy as well, where it's kind of like I feel like there's something that you clearly know, or that you have like a clear direction or decision that you're trying to make or go towards or whatever, but there's almost like a second guessing or like a feeling like you're like contradicting yourself in some way. That it kind of feels like that's part of your energy as well. So we're just gonna go into like the overall context and sort of try and clear that energy out. So the first card we're starting off here is the resin card, which is really interesting. It was bringing in this energy today of the bond, right? The things that are bonded together in whatever form that is, because I feel like this is something like there's something here about preservation, right? Like something that's preserved in the resin or preserved in the bond, right? There's something, or preserving a specific bond maybe, right? Like there's all of this energy of sort of like memories or things that from maybe the past, but it was also kind of looking to me today like a gong, right? Like a bell, like a chime, like a wake up bell or something like that. Like it's kind of coming through with the energy of judgment is what this is feeling like a wake up call or something like that. And what's really interesting here is the next card out, you have here the reddening, which talks about like a culmination point, that a lot of things in your life right now are coming together into like this culmination point. And what it's feeling like is that all aspects of your life, like your work, your laboratory, like where you do your work, like the significant spaces in your life, the relationships in your life, and also very importantly, your identity as a person are all kind of merging and melding together, and like coming together is kind of how this card is feeling today, into perhaps something like a significant bond may be important here. And then you have here these three cards. So the Uranus, which has been coming up a lot, which is just talking about like this lightning strike of inspiration or something that's shifting very quickly. It's kind of feeling like a good luck or like a burst of clarity is kind of how it's coming through with the glass, right? Because this talks about like clearing the fog, being able to see forward or move towards the thing that you're wanting to move towards. And then here the vinegar, which I really love this card because obviously with the name of my channel, right? Like the Citrus Garden, acid and vinegar and sour taste is very, very significant to me. And so if you think about vinegar in like a dish, right? If you're eating something that's very rich, for example, or very sweet, vinegar, or acid, I should say, is a balancer. It balances that opposite taste, which is really, really a significant theme that's running through your reading today. Okay, so let's get into the actual reading part. So we're starting off here with the dissolution, which is a really interesting card today because it talks about like dissolving some aspect of your identity, right? Because I feel like this is the solution is also kind of how it was coming through, right? If we just focus on the word solution. So I used to be a chemistry teacher. So the word solution in chemistry means like dissolving particles or chemicals into water or into like a bigger medium, right? So water is the solution, but there's so much there about like the phrasing of that in this dissolving of perhaps your identity or some aspect of your ego in some way, in dissolving it in water, perhaps becoming part of a bigger whole, that provides the solution, is what this card is talking about. So I'm going to come back to this card because it's very significant here in the rest of your reading. And then here we have the Chiron card, which is all of this reddening aspect, right? Like the red color is very significant for this. And this Chiron card talks about, like, of course, like the wounded warrior, right? It's like the ability to take your wounds and your pains and all of that and use that to help others or heal others. So it's bringing in this aspect of like purpose and mission, right? So some aspect of your purpose and mission or the solution to the problem is tied to the Chiron aspect, which is like your pains or your wounding. But both of these two energies coming in together, we're bringing in this idea of like Superman, right? Which is kind of like a cliched example, but if you think of Superman, right? Incredibly strong, and also like has so many different strengths. And I feel like this dissolution, right? The ability for you, Libra, to, I want to say, dissolve part of your ego is your superpower. Whatever that means, because it kind of feels like, but anyways, continuing on with that metaphor of Superman, is that with all his strengths, right? His strengths are because he's from a different planet, right? His biology is different, or whatever, however you want to frame that. That it's like he's from somewhere else, and that's also tied to his weakness, right? His weakness is kryptonite, which are the radioactive particles of his home. So there's something here about like your weaknesses and your strengths are absolutely two sides of the same coin, right? They're intrinsically linked. And I feel like there's something here about that this dissolution is your superpower, because so there's a lot here about like opposites, right? Also opposite energy. So because this is a Libra moon energy, right? This is a Libra moon reading. Right now, the sun, when I'm posting this video, the moon is in Aries, right? And also the sun is in Aries. We're at the new moon in Aries. So Aries is the opposite sign to you, Libra. So there's this energy here. There's so much like opposition, right? Like strength and weakness. Because I feel like part of what it is that you're experiencing, right, with the reddening and all of this sort of like the balancing energy, right, with the vinegar, there's a balancing energy happening for you right now. I want to say that has something to do with Aries energy. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but you have here like the Empress and the Emperor, which came out together, which is kind of like in the middle of the spread, but I'm bringing these up because it's relevant to what I'm saying right now. Because the Emperor is the Aries energy, right? And Empress is a Venus energy, which represents Libra today. So how I'm interpreting these energies is that with the Aries energy, this is how I interpret it, because this is just a little bit of a personal information for you about me, is that like my moon is in Aries, right? Which is opposite to you. But my sun is in Libra. So because I have those two energies that are opposite, my sun and my moon signs are opposite, sometimes there's this very pulling apart energy that perhaps you can describe it as like an inner conflict where there's two opposing kind of energies that perhaps cause tension, right? So how the energy is coming through for you with the Aries and the Libra tension is that Aries, I interpret, or how I'm seeing it for this reading, is that Aries is a very independent energy, right? They like to be the one sort of that's in charge, that's like calling all the shots, that kind of thing with the Emperor, like to be in control, right? Like to be the boss, like to be the one that's making all the decisions, right? But with the Libra energy, how it's coming through is that there's the very important desire to be harmonized with the group, to be the one who sort of keeps the peace, who just makes everything flow easily, who perhaps on some level dissolves some aspect of their ego, or to like right, like puts other people's needs ahead of their own. That's how this opposition is coming through today, which is really interesting, because the next card out here with the wise salt is coming through with actually like table salt, right? So this is a little bit of chemistry just coming in for you, because of these two cards. If you think about table salt, it's made up of two ions, sodium and chlorine, which is the positive and a negative charge, right? Two ions, one's positively charged, one's negatively charged. They're opposite charges bonded together. That's what this salt is, right? But if you put salt in water, it dissolves. And what happens is chemically is that the positive and the negative ions that make up salt become separated, right? That's what this, so that could be what this resin is talking about, right? That there's something here about a bond being broken or being separated in some way. But it's also talking about the fact that in this cup of water, right? In this cup of water, those two elements still exist together, is what this is talking about. But they're just melded, right? It's because the identity of the salt has changed, is what this is feeling like, right? Like it's no longer salt because it's dissolved in water, but it's still salty water, if that makes sense. This is so abstract. I have no idea how this is gonna apply to you in like a very physical, real life way. But what this is feeling like is kind of like that. Perhaps there's with you, Libra, I feel like, again, it's kind of feeling like I'm contradicting myself, which is kind of feeling like, I feel like there's some aspect here of like, there may be some sort of decision that you're trying to make, because it's kind of, your first two cards here are coming out with the 9 of Swords and the 6 of Swords, which is all of this sort of anxiety, right? And also because the red color in this is very significant. There's some sort of choice or decision, or perhaps you're being called towards, with the resin, you're being called towards some new thing, but it's kind of like, in order to do that, you would have to dissolve or break some sort of bond that has defined you up until this point, is kind of how this is feeling in some way. I have no idea what that means. I feel like for you, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that's what the 6 of Swords is talking about, because this one always looks to me like, well, it comes in with the 3 of Swords, right? Like three birds are leaving, 3 birds are staying, that kind of thing. So it's breaking some sort of bond to, I don't know what that means. It doesn't have to be a relationship. It could just be like, because it's coming in with all these swords, it could be like a thought process or a mind, logical thinking process that you are having to leave behind that has become part of your identity. There's so many interruptions today, Libra. Sorry for the choppiness of this video, but I feel like what this part of the 6 of Swords is, right? Because it's coming in with all this swords energy, right? Like your thinking process. It could just be that you're overthinking something, or it's feeling kind of like it has to do with contradiction and opposites. Because how I see this 6 of Swords is that you move into calmer waters when you release the thoughts or the ideas or whatever it is that are no longer serving you, is kind of how this is feeling. And it kind of has to do with this wise salt, right? Like because this card talks about wisdom. So there could be something like, some idea or something that you have gained, right? Some sort of wisdom that you've gained about a certain situation or about a certain experience is actually holding you back from your expansion, is kind of how this is feeling, which is really, really interesting, because it kind of feels like I don't, going back to this, the Emperor and the Empress, because it's kind of feeling like there's this energy, and I'm not even sure which one it is for you, because you have here the Venus card. the Venus card, which is absolutely your energy, right? Like the Venus is talking about, it talks about relationships to me, right? Like, or how we show up in relationships, how we express in relationships. It's also talking about like desire and passion and also beauty and things like, perhaps there's like some aspect of superficiality as well that's involved in this, or because it's talking about dissolution, right? And the shadow and like the light aspects, or the positive and the negative, if you want to talk about it like that. I want to say that there's some aspect within this dynamic here that is needing to be like dissolved or let go of. And I don't even know what that is for you, but what it's, I feel like you will know, because it's like you're being pulled in two directions, basically, is what this is feeling like. One of them needs to be let go in order for you to move towards what it is that you want to move towards. Like there's something here with the Venus, that's what I was talking about, where it's kind of like perhaps you sacrifice some aspect of what you want for the sake of the group, is kind of how this is feeling. When it's kind of like maybe there's something here about like you choosing something that's what you want rather than something that would benefit the group, is kind of, because I feel like I'm very strongly feeling like this reading is wanting you to lean more towards the Aries aspect, right? Doing things independently, or doing something that's for yourself, or that would put you in charge, or something like that, right? Because I feel like with all this red energy, it's wanting you to lean more into the Aries aspect. Because you also have here this interesting energy here with the Saturn. Because this is very much, it's not like, Aries is not ruled by Saturn, but it's coming through with a very similar energy here of like discipline and control. Because this interesting fact that was in the book for the Saturn was that Saturn is almost like the equilibrium of our solar system, right? Again, it feels like I'm contradicting myself by saying this, but it's almost like it's the energy, because of its gravitational field, it prevents Jupiter from crashing into the sun, basically, is what was coming through here. So what I'm seeing is that it's almost like pulling you back, right? It's wanting you, again, it feels like I'm contradicting myself, but it's just because I'm not being clear, I think. What this is feeling like is that I feel like this reading is trying to get you to lean more into the Aries aspect, right? Your shadow aspect, right? The energy that is opposite to you, because that is your solution, is to have both of those two aspects, right? The Emperor aspect and the Empress aspect, the positive and the negative charge, all existing within one solution, right? That's the energy. So it kind of feels like so perhaps like maybe even watching the Aries Sun video might provide insight into what that means. Maybe for one of you there might be something helpful for that. But what I'm seeing here next is that there's this really interesting thing happening with your cards where, so first of all, you have the numbers, which is just talking about like some sort of, there's a lot of timing aspect coming in. This card talks to me about like the right timing. But then you also have like Venus and delays, which is emphasizing that a little bit more. With the delays, I feel like there's some aspect of you're delaying something because you're perhaps too much in the Venus energy when you should be more in the Saturn energy, is what that's feeling like. Because it's coming in here, especially if you look at the numbers, right? 5, 3, 5. So for me, whenever I see numbers that are like sandwiched together, right? Like you have two numbers that are sandwiching a single number, like 5, 3, 5, and then you have it again here, 8, 2, 8, which is really interesting. Again, all of this sort of like numbers and logic, which is coming in today, right? Like very analytical thinking. But I want to say that it's wanting you to switch that, because Libra is an air sign, right? Libra is about balancing the scales, right? And I feel like that's causing a delay. You're balancing two options perhaps, or trying to weigh like the pros and cons maybe about a situation, or moving in a direction that you, or whatever it is. But it's kind of like, I feel like part of the solution is perhaps having both of those two things in the same space, is kind of how this is feeling. Because I don't know what that means. I don't even know if that's possible, right? If it's kind of like, perhaps you're considering like two options or two aspects, or with the reddening card, right? It's kind of like feeling like you're having to choose between like your work life and your love life, for example, or your home life, or whatever, right? Like two things that sort of seem like they're opposite, or they're conflicting, or they're against each other, or however that plays out for you. But I feel like the solution is to have both existing in the same space, right? With the water, there's something about like the flow of it. And then you have here like the breath card. The breath card, which is kind of just like needing to take a pause, perhaps. But this is also talking about like the bridge between physical and spiritual. So there could be something like that as well, right? But how I was actually seeing this is kind of like in when you're in the water, right? When the salt dissolves in the water, it's all of this sort of like very multicolored, vibrant energy that brings you life, right? It's kind of like it's kind of looking like these are the separate ions in the water that are dissolved in the water. I don't know what that means, but what's also interesting about dissolving in the water, right? If you dissolve salt in water, that water now carries a current, right? You can now put a current through that water. It becomes electrically charged, is what that's feeling like, especially with these, because you have the Knight of Swords, the Tower, and the Six of Wands, which is talking about success. But it's all of this lightning, is that if you're willing to dissolve some aspect of your ego or identity, or bring together opposite elements of yourself, I want to say, it allows for this electrical charge to run through it, a current, right? There's a light bulb, there's light, there's success, there's some sort of breakthrough moment. And this Knight of Swords I always describe as being an upgrade, right? Like you're getting an upgrade, or like a faster moving vehicle, that kind of thing, to get towards your goals. This Tower card I describe as being like bringing in new resources, right? And it's bringing in success. So just to conclude this reading, it's feeling incredibly abstract. But what I want to say is that this reading is trying to get you to simultaneously bring together two opposites, right? Two opposite aspects of yourself, and put it all in the solution, right? That's the solution, is to have two opposite charges in the same space so that there's a current that runs through it. But in that process, in bringing those two positive and negative aspects in the same space, it's a dissolving of your ego, if that makes sense. Which is or dissolving of some aspect of your identity, right? I don't know what that means, so I'm just going to leave it there, Libra. I hope that made sense for somebody. I'm going to move to the extended. The link for that's in the description box below if you're interested in that. You'll also find information for personal readings on my website. I'm also doing a sale for Aries season. So if you're interested, I'll put all the information below in the description box, so please check it out. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.